Hello, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. My name is Kevin Rich. I am the Director of Applied Shakespeare here at CU Boulder. I want to quickly introduce my colleagues who have joined me for this webinar today. So just as I'm looking at the screen, Amanda Giguere,
Hello.
who is Director of Outreach at the Colorado Shakespeare Festival and teaches for a number of the courses in the program. Teresa Nugent,
Greetings all.
who is rostered in English and teaches um, the introductory class for the 9 credit certificate, and Jason O'Leary, who is coming to us from Australia, who is a graduate of the certificate program and can speak um, to his experience as a student. So thanks all three of you for joining me. Great. Well, we're just going to give a quick introduction to this graduate certificate and talk through the different courses and the capstone project. Then I have some frequently asked questions. And then if there are any questions after that, feel free to put them in the chat in the Q&A section, and we can look at those. Um, After I move through the frequently asked questions, it's been my experience that those might answer the questions that you have, but feel free to ask any additional if any come up. So Applied Shakespeare at CU Boulder. This program is in its, I think, 8th year now, eighth or ninth year. Um, uh, It's a very exciting interdisciplinary program. It's a collaboration between the departments of theater and dance, the Department of English, and the Colorado Shakespeare Festival. And in this presentation, as I said, first we'll answer the question, what is applied Shakespeare? Or at least we'll attempt to answer that question. And then we'll talk about the courses um, and then answer any questions. So what is applied Shakespeare? Essentially, we think of it as an umbrella term that investigates how Shakespeare can be applied today in education, in community, or to the creation of new work. And as I said, this is an interdisciplinary graduate certificate with 3 campus partners that attracts a wide variety of students. 3 primary groups is who we've found being interested in this program: teachers and teaching artists, theater makers, and scholars and enthusiasts. And what's exciting about that is it makes for really rich conversation when you have students coming at Shakespeare from a variety of different perspectives. But everyone is interested in thinking about how Shakespeare may be applied today in a wide variety of ways. This is a quote from a graduate of our program, class of 2020. Not only does applied Shakespeare offer a unique way of exploring how Shakespeare fits into our contemporary world and serves diverse populations, but with students coming from such varied backgrounds, each class session has been insightful and engaging. It's one of my favorite parts of the program as well. So again, it's a 9 credit certificate, meaning there's 3 classes. The first class and the second class are online. First class happens in the spring semester. Second class happens in the beginning of the summer. And then the third class is an on-campus intensive, 1 week long, where everybody comes together, descends on Boulder to see shows with the Colorado Shakespeare Festival and take classes during the day. So, Teresa, if you'd like to share a little bit about this first class, as it's the one that you teach.
Absolutely. Hi, everybody. Thanks for being here. The Intro to Applied Shakespeare class is the starting point that provides a foundation of what are theater and scholars and teachers saying about these plays and Shakespeare's works, and what do we know about his life and the world in which he was constructing these pieces in. So we spend the semester looking at the plays that will have been chosen for the upcoming season for the Colorado Shakespeare Festival, And often we have the directors or managing directors come, and sometimes the actors will come and join us in class and talk through their process for thinking about the theme, the approach, the issues that the different actors are trying to figure out in terms of their relationship as characters, just what that process looks like. We spend we go through about 10 or 11 plays, and each participant usually chooses one or two of the plays. And so I try to really bring in what each person already thinks that they'd like to work on toward thinking about their capstone project. And then we collectively work through a play every single week, every Monday afternoon, and talk about, how is it relevant today? What are some of the applications? What are the big issues that are in this play? Um, and we really have a lot of fun just sort of grappling with these early modern texts and their applicability to our current 21st century scenario. Um, Halfway through, the students are really starting to brainstorm ideas for the capstone. And the main project of the course is to develop what we call a capstone toolkit. So you're collecting materials that may be resources for that capstone project that you do over the summer or on down the road, depending on what path you take. Um, and the group is very collaborative and provides resources for each other. We pool our resources in our Canvas site and share them with each other. And it's a very supportive community that develops as the initial beginning of this journey that you take.
Excellent. Thanks, Teresa. And you mentioned the capstone project. That is the culminating project for each student, and it's tailored to recognize that students are enrolled in the class for different reasons. Again, a teacher might have a different reason um, uh, for enrolling in the course than a theater artist. And so the capstone is meant for you to end the program, leave the program with a project that is tied to your reasons for being in the program. And I'll offer up examples of capstone projects that have happened just to help illustrate that. But that is a process that starts uh, in Teresa's class, and then you can also it will continue through this class, Shakespeare and Community, which is the one that I teach in the summertime that comes out of the theater department and that surveys a wide variety of applications of Shakespeare in community. So each week we look at a different example and bring in an applied Shakespeare practitioner who's doing that work. So one week may be Shakespeare in prisons, and then the next Shakespeare with veterans. And it's been my experience that through this class, students may continue to develop the capstone toolkit that they started in the previous class, or they may change their minds because they have a new idea um, inspired by one of the presentations in this course, and that is absolutely fair game. um, if you want to pivot at some point during the program and change what your capstone project is. So that's the Shakespeare and Community class, which runs from about a week after the previous class ends, also on Monday afternoons, and runs up until the summer intensive. And that, as I mentioned, is in person, where everybody comes together for a week to see rehearsals and performances and take a number of hands-on master classes during the day taught by C. Boulder faculty and CSF guest artists. Um, and Amanda, you are heavily involved in the on-campus intensive so I'd love for you to add your thoughts.
Yeah, sure. Gosh, I love participating in this intensive because it's so nice to be meeting a group of people who have already gotten to know each other through these online courses and have built an ensemble, but that this is the first time they're coming together in person, and we get to do a lot of work that's embodied by nature of just being together. Um, so I wear many hats at the Colorado Shakespeare Festival. I teach in this program. I also run all of the education programs, and I work as a dramaturg. So I kind of bring all of that into the work that I do with the intensive. And I'm with the intensive every day, in addition to usually one or two other guests. Sometimes we have voice and movement classes. Um, but in the way that I structure my time with the intensive students, it's kind of about dipping our toes into a lot of different practical applications that we use at the Colorado Shakespeare Festival. So one day we might approach Shakespeare as a dramaturg and actually learn the tools of what kind of skills do we bring into the rehearsal room, and most of it is anchored in the actual season that's happening. So I'll bring in a lot of my dramaturgy materials. We'll look at kind of how we approach the plays this particular season. We do some work as how we approach the plays as educators, so from a pedagogical standpoint. So it's sort of teeing us up to for folks who are interested in the longer teaching Shakespeare class, which we'll get to in a second. We also think about how to approach the plays as directors and then also as early modern theater practitioners. So to sort of align it with the work that Teresa has done earlier in the semester, what are some of the early modern theater practices and what does it feel like to put the plays in our bodies the way Shakespeare's company might have? I would say that the intensive week is all about where scholarship meets practice and how we put all of these scholarly ideas, artistic ideas into bodies and into scenic elements and things we can actually see happening on the stage. We also have camps running at the same time, and we have some of the most amazing little humans. In fact, Teresa's daughter did our camp so as a kid. And I think it's really important to expose people in the Applied Shakespeare Certificate program to multi-age encounters with Shakespeare. And so we'll always bring our Applied Shakespeare cohort in to observe the camps in action. And so last year, for example, Jason got to see some young kids doing a performance of Dr. Faustus, as you do when you're 9 years old. So that's kind of an overview of the fun, whirlwind week of the intensive, but it's a really, really invigorating and completely inspiring week.
I totally agree. Thanks, Amanda. And then the capstone. So following the summer intensive, students have a month following, after they leave to complete and submit their individual capstone projects. Now, I want to be clear that many of the projects might not be able to be fully realized in the month, and that's totally fine. The expectation is that what you're submitting is a plan for a project that you'd like to do. In some cases, students have been able to realize the project, and in other cases, it's simply the plan for doing so. And that'll become clear when I share some examples of capstone projects that have been done over the past 7 or 8 years. So again, the teachers might put together a lesson plan or a syllabus for a new course or create some new high school curriculum or design and teach a workshop for a specific population. Theater artists might present a directing concept for a Shakespeare production. Actors might create a solo performance piece that is connected to a Shakespeare play or a one-person show about a character in particular. We've had students write new plays or novels. I'm looking at you, Jason. Inspired by or in conversation with a Shakespearean play. Our scholars might submit a research paper that intersects Shakespeare with a specific field, topic, or social issue. So you'll see we are sort of infuriatingly vague in terms of the prompt for the capstone project because we kind of want to create as much possibility, as much range as possible, given the wide variety of students that enroll in this program. I also want to mention one other class because as this program has grown and we have collected some alumni, we heard from many alumni, I'm not done. I want more. I want to supersize my certificate. So you get the certificate after 9 credits, but the option exists for you to take an additional 3 now because we created a standalone course called Teaching Shakespeare that Amanda also teaches. So if you want to share out about that a little
Yeah,
bit.
sure. That's a class that some people have taken in lieu of the intensive if they can't make it for the intensive, or they just can't get enough of applied Shakespeare programs through CU
That's right.
Boulder.
Both
Um,
options exist.
both options exist. And this class is fully online. Really, it's aimed to be like much of the applied Shakespeare certificate program. It's really aimed at a range of um, people from a range of experiences. Some teachers who are currently in classrooms right now teaching a group of students and kind of trying out ideas. So many people are coming into the class with existing experience and a lot of skills teaching Shakespeare. Some are total newcomers when it comes to teaching Shakespeare, and some are not teachers at all. Um, and so I've tried to craft the class so that it is really it supports people at all these levels, and that the work that students are doing in the class is about how to support your work in your actual classroom or your hypothetical classroom if you one day want to be teaching. Um, and really the class is about let's explore the many, many ways that people approach how to teach Shakespeare from a variety of ages, and there's a word missing from that content focus description across multiple content areas. So
Mhm.
how can you use Shakespeare, to teach not only language arts or drama, but are there other opportunities where, I don't know, we're looking at math through through Shakespeare, which is totally doable. We work with one primary text throughout the semester, and that is the kind of best text I've found for this kind of work. It's called Teaching Shakespeare with Purpose by Ayanna Thompson and Laura Turchi. But then we pair it with a lot of articles and sort of contemporary um, essays about the art of teaching Shakespeare. And that class culminates in there are two key lesson plans that students are creating over the course of the semester. One's kind of a midterm where you're sharing your first lesson plan. And really, like the capstone, it's very open-ended, and I encourage students to keep it focused on your current situation or the situation you want to one day be in. So in the class I'm teaching right now, we have some folks designing sort of like standalone lessons that can be taught in 1 hour. And so, which one day the student hopes to teach, another student is designing a semester-long course. So it really kind of depends on what's going to best set you up to be teaching down the road. That's a really fun class as well, and join us.
Yeah, you're in the middle of it right now,
In the
right?
middle of it right now.
Yeah, excellent. Well, very good. Before I move into frequently asked questions, prospective students often love hearing from students who've actually completed the program. So Jason O'Leary, if you could talk a little bit about who you are and your reasons for enrolling in the program, maybe a bit about your capstone and your experience of the certificate.
Great. Thank you, Kevin, Teresa, and Amanda. And firstly, thank you so much for asking me to do this. Probably for those that are online, we could be here for the next hour with me talking about the program. I loved it so much. I think Kevin mentioned that I'm from Australia and I'm in Australia today. So I was able to come over to Boulder for the intensive. I loved it so much. I brought the t-shirt, not just one, but multiple. And in a way, I feel like a little bit of an imposter because I think my background wasn't in Shakespeare scholarship. And as much as I feel like an imposter, it also really makes me feel that that's why the program is so great, because I was so welcomed into the community with all the academics and all the other students as well. And in the classes that I took, we had professors from other universities doing the subjects. We had playwrights, quite established playwrights that were doing it. We had educators, people wanting to work in community with younger people. And they had such extensive knowledge about Shakespeare with the academics. It was absolutely amazing. But at no time was I felt unwelcome. So we were able to ask our questions and have really great debates, discussions every single week. And I think it's also important for me to acknowledge that I did the adaptation subject as well. So when Kevin talks about the supercharging your graduate certificate, I supercharged early and went into that subject. And there was a lot of students that had done the graduate certificate the year before. And again, they were so knowledgeable, but we just had really great discussions. One of the students wanted to do a sequel to Twelfth Night. So he had obviously knew that play backwards and forwards, inside and out, and we did that one of our weeks. And just me being able to talk to him as well as Kevin and everybody else made that experience really great for me. When we
And of
got
course, the sequel would be called 13th Night.
13th Night, yes. And we had someone doing a novel after The Tempest as well. And we were also studying The Tempest, and she knew that play inside out. Um, I just loved every week. And we do in that subject every week, we put a paper together with our thoughts of the play that we're working on and the contemporary adaptations. And one of the things Kevin and I always, at the beginning, was when it was like, if you were directing this play, what would you do? And I was angry at first, thinking, well, I don't want to be a director. How do I know how I would direct it? But you were so open and said, just go with it. It's just your thoughts. And I would just write the sort of craziest big ideas, what I would do. And it would just start conversations and really allowed me to think more deeply about the play and what it might mean in the contemporary world that we live in, which is what I wanted to do. In the second subject, which was the applied Shakespeare, we had so many sort of guests that came in outside of Colorado, and I know that they change from year to year, so I'm not going to name them all, but really a lot of, if you're working or interested in this area, you're going to know these people. And in my work in Australia, I've been able to name drop some of those people, and people are absolutely amazed that I've got to study with them, learn from them, and actually talk to them. And I also met one of the America's most prolific playwrights as well that blew my mind. And although I was tongue-tied and probably looked quite silly, I got to ask her some questions about her practice, and that wouldn't have been possible if it wasn't for this course. Then we move into the intensive, and wow, what an immersion that was for me. We did dramaturgy, we did intimacy training, we did cue scripts. I was up on my feet trying to do Romeo and Juliet. We did, I think what was it, Much Ado About Nothing. We did a lot going on in that week, and it's not something that I would have thought that I was comfortable doing. But again, everybody, it was just so welcoming and warm. And then when you see the 9-year-olds doing Dr. Faustus, you think, get over yourself, Jason, get up on your feet and say some Shakespeare. I tripped over words. I'm not an actor. I can't perform Shakespeare. Nobody cared. We just did it for the learning and the experience. And then we saw all the plays as well. So in the evenings, you get to go to the plays, something that we don't have in Australia. And I'm not sure if it's at every Shakespeare festival, but whether it's Amanda, Trey, other people doing it's the prologue, isn't it? Before the productions where they talk about the play dramaturgically from the history of it to the production. And you get to experience that as well. My biggest problem doing the course was I had far too many ideas for my capstone, and Kevin had to keep emailing me, asking me, sorry, is this your capstone this week? Is this your, I'm like, well, can I have a moment to think about it? My reason for doing the course, which I probably should have said right at the beginning, is I'm an emerging playwright and I'm also doing my PhD in playwriting. But I also have a fantastic job at the University of Melbourne as the creative director for the Melbourne Public Humanities Initiative. And we work with one of the major theatre companies in Australia called Bell Shakespeare. So that's why I wanted to do this course. It just was my personal interest and my work as well. Part of my job, I was able to invite Amanda over to Australia to give some lectures and some train the trainer training on her program, Shakespeare and Violence Prevention. And just the impact that we're able to make and people that are wanting to do this course is that we had people emailing me and my university afterwards, basically glowing firstly about Amanda's presentation, but we had one of our alumni from our medicine faculty that was like, we should be doing Shakespeare and violence prevention for healthcare professionals in hospitals. This program supports empathy, upstander behavior, everything that Amanda was teaching. And somebody, a doctor, immediate was like, this is how we should be applying Shakespeare in the healthcare. And this person wasn't a Shakespeare enthusiast. I don't know why she came, but she was so immersed and engaged by it. That this is the type of thing that we're doing when you do this course every week. You're just coming up with new ideas and new thoughts about how you could apply Shakespeare. Mine was so out of the box because wanting to be a playwright, my capstone subject actually is a novelization, a gay YA novel of Hamlet. And I'm 33% through that now, but my capstone is complete. And again, everybody has given me such encouragement and support, offering to read it for me as beta readers as I progress. So my experience has been absolutely fantastic. If you have any interest in Shakespeare, I would say the Graduate Certificate of Applied Shakespeare is the course to do it at Boulder. Can't thank Kevin, Teresa, and Amanda enough, and all the other teaching staff that we met in the intensive. And if there's any questions in the Q&A, because I've rambled there, I'm more than happy to answer them, but I'll probably pass back to Kevin.
That's excellent. Thanks, Jason. The only thing I disagree with about what you said is that you can't perform Shakespeare. You did a terrific job. You were great. Okay, so some frequently asked questions. What's the cost of the program? It is $665 per credit hour, or $5,985 for the entire 9 credits. And this price applies for both resident and non-resident students in-state and out-of-state. Unfortunately, financial aid or scholarships are not available for the certificate, but we do provide a payment plan for students who enroll prior to January 4th. And there would be a 3-month payment plan if you meet the second deadline of February 4th. And there is a link there. You can't click on that link, but press pause in the recording if you're watching this back. And it's also on our website. Is housing available for the on-campus intensive? It's not provided for the 1 week. However, we do provide a long list of hotels within walking distance, and many of our out-of-town students also choose rental options through Airbnb. And by that time, the cohort is pretty close, and it's been the case where people have gone in on a house together. An Airbnb house. They haven't actually bought a house, just to be clear. When are decisions made? So applications are open now. The final deadline, they usually open in June, and the final deadline is December 1st. And decisions are made on a rolling basis, but the final decisions about whether the cohort moves forward, because there does need to be a minimum number of qualified applicants in order for the program to move forward, that decision will be made by December 14th. So even if you're accepted early, if you apply well before the deadline, we still have to wait and make sure that we have enough students in order for it to move forward. How do I apply? Online.colorado.edu. Search for the certificate there. All that's needed is an unofficial transcript and a statement of purpose. Oftentimes in that statement of purpose, students will, offer an idea of what their capstone may be as part of their reason for enrolling in the program, the project that they may want to leave with. But again, you're not bound to it in case you change your mind. Excellent. Well, I'm not seeing any additional questions in the chat. Hopefully we were able to answer them along the way, but feel free to reach out to me anytime. I'm at appliedshakespeare@colorado.edu. And if you have questions for any of the other panelists, I'm happy to send you their way if you reach out to me.
Kevin, I have a question. I just
Yes,
realized. Is this a course that teachers have been able to use to get professional development credit towards like salary bumps, et cetera?
That is an excellent question. Yes, absolutely. These is 3 graduate credits per class, 9 total, 12 if you supersize, and they all do apply. And that's I think why we have so many teachers enrolled in the program, because these are continuing education credits. It's run through our continuing education department on campus, and they do apply. Yeah, Teresa, I love that we have questions from our panelists. That's excellent.
It's not really a question as much as one more just sort of idea for the audience that some of our students are dipping their toe, as Amanda likes to say, into graduate studies and trying to figure out, is this something I want to go forward with? And this is their comfort zone where they know they love Shakespeare and they are testing the waters of whether or not, they want to do more. So that's also been a very satisfying to help students explore Shakespeare studies.
And I'm really glad that you said that, because we have had some certificate students in the past roll those credits into a master's program. And so that is absolutely an option as well. These are transferable. I mean, I think it's up to the institution, but students have done that in the past. Excellent. Well, thanks so much again for joining. Thank you to our panelists. And please reach out to appliedshakespeare@colorado.edu if you have any additional questions, or move straight to the application at online.colorado.edu. Thanks so much. Have a great one.